Hello and welcome to Sally's Social Isolation Quiz. Today we have got 4 rounds of history, sport, Rogers and food and drink. We also have a table round with anagrams of seas and oceans. First round, history. Question 1. Where was Martin Luther King assassinated? Where was Martin Luther King assassinated? Question 2. What was the main cargo of clipper ships? What was the main cargo of clipper ships? That's very difficult to say. Question 3. In which country did General Pinochet lead a military coup? In which country did General Pinochet lead a military coup? Question 4. Which battle took place in 1815? Which battle took place in 1815? Number 5. Which battle took place in 1415? Which battle took place in 1415? Question 6. How many years was Nelson Mandela in prison for? How many years was Nelson Mandela in prison for? Question 7. Of which year of the 2000s did a tsunami from the Indian Ocean kill 250,000 people on Boxing Day? Of which year of the 2000s did a tsunami from the Indian Ocean kill 250,000 people on Boxing Day? Question 8. In which year of the 2010s did volcanic ash from an eruption in Iceland lead to the closure of airspace over most of Europe? In which year of the 2010s did volcanic ash from an eruption in Iceland lead to the closure of airspace over most of Europe? Question 9. Mary Ann Nichols was the first victim of which serial killer? Mary Ann Nichols was the first victim of which serial killer? And question 10. Which monarch was the first to appear on a postage stamp? Which monarch was the first to appear on a postage stamp? And that is the end of the history round. Round 2, the sport round. In which team sport does each player get to play every position? In which team sport does every player get to play every position? Question 2. In 2008, Kobe Bryant was voted the most valuable player in which sport? In 2008, Kobe Bryant was voted the most valuable player in which sport? Question 3. Which sport uses a map and a compass? Which sport uses a map and a compass? Question 4. Which sport uses stones and brooms? Which sport uses stones and brooms? Question 5. With which sport was Juan Fangio associated? With which sport was Juan Fangio associated? Question 6. In the 1980s, Irishman Stephen Roach was a leading competitor in which sport? In the 1980s, Stephen Roach, who is an Irishman, was a leading competitor in which sport? Question 7. Who was the first unseeded man to win Wimbledon? Who was the first unseeded man to win Wimbledon? Question 8. What colour is the history category in the Trivial Pursuit cake? What colour is the history category in the Trivial Pursuit cake? Question 9. Where did the FA Cup final take place between 2001 and 2006? Where did the FA Cup final take place between 2001 and 2006? And question 10. Which country has played the most World Cup tournaments without making it past the first round? Which country has played in the most World Cup tournaments without making it past the first round? And that is the end of the sports round. And question 10. Which country has played the most World Cup tournaments without making it past the first round? Which country has played in the most World Cup tournaments without making it past the first round? And that is the end of the sports round. Round 3, and this is all about Rogers. Question 1. Where did Roger Bannister run the first sub 4 minute mile in 1954? Where did Roger Bannister run the first sub 4 minute mile in 1954? Question 2. Who did everything Fred did, backwards and in heels, according to a famous quote? Who did everything Fred did, backwards and in heels, according to a famous quote? Question 3. With whom did the ventriloquist Roger de Courcy perform? With whom did the ventriloquist Roger de Courcy perform? Was it Roland Rat, Sid the Squirrel, or Nookie Bear? Was it Roland Rat, Sid the Squirrel, or Nookie Bear? Question 4. Don Rogers took Arsenal apart in the 1969 League Cup final, enabling which third division club to win their only major trophy? Don Rogers took Arsenal apart in the 1969 League Cup final, enabling which third division club to win their only major trophy? Question 5. With which band has Roger Daltrey been the lead singer for over 40 years? With which band has Roger Daltrey been the lead singer for over 40 years? Question 6. In which year did Peter Mark Roget first publish his Thesaurus? Was it 1852, 1922 or 1946? In which year did Peter Marc Roget first publish his Thesaurus? Was it 1852, 1922 or 1946? Question 7. Which of these is not a Rodgers and Hammerstein musical? South Pacific, West Side Story, The King and I, and The Sound of Music. Which of these is not a Rodgers and Hammerstein musical? Is it South Pacific, West Side Story, The King and I, and The Sound of Music? Question 8. Buster Crabbe played which hero in a 1939 Universal movie? Buster Crabbe played which hero in a 1939 Universal movie? Question 9. What was Roger Federer presented with in his country after winning Wimbledon in 2003? What was Roger Federer presented with in his country after winning Wimbledon in 2003? And question 10. In which pop group is Roger Taylor? In which pop group is Roger Taylor? Question 10. And that is the answer, the end of the Rogers round. And the last round is the food and drink round. Okay, so the first question 1. If you ordered calamari in a restaurant, what would you be eating? If you ordered calamari in a restaurant, what would you be eating? Question 2. If you ordered coq Saint-Jacques in a restaurant, what would you get? If you ordered coq Saint-Jacques in a restaurant, what would you get? Question 3. What is haggis made from? Is it sheep's hide, cow gut, sheep's stomach, or stretched pork skin? Is it sheep's hide, cow gut, sheep's stomach, or stretched pork skin? Question 4. Meringues are made from which 2 ingredients? And you have to be specific here. Meringues are made from which 2 ingredients? Right, very specific, not a general answer. Question 5. What is the Japanese name for a dish of specially prepared raw fish? What is the Japanese name for a dish of specially prepared raw fish? Question 6. Gorgonzola and Roquefort cheese comes from which source? Gorgonzola and Roquefort cheese comes from which source? Question 7. Which of these is not a vodka-based cocktail? Bloody Mary, Harvey Wallbanger, Moscow Mule, and Singapore Sling? Bloody Mary, Harvey Wallbanger, Moscow Mule, and Singapore Sling. Question 8. I've just noticed a mistake. Never mind. If a magnum is a double bottle of champagne, what is a quadruple bottle called? If a magnum is a double bottle of champagne, what is a quadruple bottle called? And question 9, and there are only 9 questions in this round. For some reason I typed it wrong. Who is replacing Sandy Toksvig on the Great British Bake Off for the 2020 series? Who is replacing Sandy Toksvig on the Great British Bake Off for the 2020 series? So in that round there are only 9 questions, sorry to say. And here are the answers to the 4 rounds. The first round is history. Martin Luther King was assassinated in Memphis. Martin Luther King was assassinated in Memphis. Question 2. The main cargo of clipper ships is tea. The main cargo of clipper ships is tea. Question 3. In Chile, General Pinochet led a military coup. In Chile, General Pinochet led a military coup in 1973. Question 4. The battle that took place in 1815 was the Battle of Waterloo. Question 5. The battle that took place in 1415 was the Battle of Agincourt. Question 6. Nelson Mandela was imprisoned for 27 years. Nelson Mandela was imprisoned for 27 years. The year of the tsunami in the 2000s was 2004. Boxing Day 2004. Question 8. The actual year of the volcanic eruption that led to the closure of airspace was 2010. Right, 2010 is the year. Mary Ann Nichols on question 9 was the first victim of Jack the Ripper. And question 10, the monarch who was the first to appear on a postage stamp was Queen Victoria. Second round, sport, the answers are as follows. The team sport, where everybody gets to play in every position, is volleyball. That's question 1. Volleyball is the answer. Question 2, Kobe Bryant was the most valuable player in basketball. Question 3, the sport that uses map and compass is orienteering. Orienteering. Okay. Question 4, sport, and as you remember, maybe, I can't remember which year, I think it was 2002, we had a curling team and they used stones and brooms, and you may remember that in the Olympics, in our Winter Olympic team where we won a medal. Question 5, the sport that Juan Fangio was associated was Formula 1 racing. Question 6, the Irishman Stephen Roach was a leading competitor in cycling. Question 7, the first unseeded man to win Wimbledon. Now, you may remember, he was very young, he was 17, and it was Boris Becker. I did think of Goran Ivanisevic, but he was maybe the second. But it was Boris Becker. Question 8, the colour of the history category in the Trivial Pursuit cake is yellow. Question 9, the FA Cup final took place in the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff between 2001 and 2006. Question 10. The country that has attended most World Cup tournaments for only the first round was Scotland. Scotland. Now round 3 is the Rogers round. And question 1. Roger Bannister ran the first sub 4-minute mile in Oxford. Oxford will do. In the Iffley Road running track. The Iffley Road running track. Okay. Question 2. Who did everything Fred did? Well, Fred was associated with Ginger Rogers. And she did everything backwards and in heels. Okay, so Ginger Rogers was the answer. Question 3. Roger de Courcy performed with Nookie Bear. Nookie Bear. Question 4. Don Rogers took Arsenal apart in the 1969 League Cup final, enabling Swindon Town to win their only major trophy. Swindon Town. Question 5. Roger Daltrey has been the lead singer in The Who. The Who for over 40 years. Question 6. Peter Mark Roget first published his Thesaurus in 1852. Question 7. West Side Story is not a Rodgers and Hammerstein musical. It was actually based on Romeo and Juliet. West Side Story. Question 8. Buster Crabbe played Buck Rogers in the 1939 Universal movie. Question 9. Roger Federer was presented with a cow called Juliet after winning Wimbledon in 2003. And question 10. Roger Taylor is in the pop group Queen. Roger Taylor is in the pop group Queen. I think he still is. I think they're still working. And the last round on food and drink. The answer to question 1, if you ordered calamari in a restaurant, you would be eating squid. Question 2, if you ordered coq Saint-Jacques in a restaurant, you would get scallops. Question 3, haggis is made from sheep's stomach. Question 4, now this is where you have to be specific. Egg whites and sugar are the 2 ingredients of meringues. Not eggs, egg whites. Okay. The Japanese name, question 5, for a dish of specially prepared raw fish is sashimi. Sashimi. And not sushi. Sushi is the rice, according to my quiz book. I don't know anything about it, but it's sashimi. Okay, question 6. Gorgonzola and Roquefort cheese comes from ewe's milk. Gorgonzola and Roquefort cheese comes from ewe's milk. Question 7. A Singapore Sling is not a vodka-based cocktail. It is made from gin. A Singapore Sling. Now, question 8. If a Magnum is a double bottle of champagne, a quadruple bottle is called a Jeroboam. A Jeroboam. And question 9. Who is replacing Sandy Toksvig on the Great British Bake Off for the 2020 series? That is Matt Lucas. Matt Lucas.